Today we consider the resolution, an overriding ethical obligation to protect and preserve extraterrestrial microbial life and ecosystems should be incorporated in international law. My research on the topic has led me to one inescapable conclusion. If protecting alien life on other worlds is really what we want to do, we must oppose this resolution. I'll make a simple counter-argument in 3 parts. First, that there is a space race now between governments and private enterprise. Second, that governments must win this space race if they hope to protect alien life on Mars in the future. And last, that governments will only win this space race if we reject the resolution. Now, it's common knowledge that the private sector is well behind governments when it comes to space travel and space technology, but that doesn't mean they won't catch up. NASA only requested a budget of $1.2 billion to fund contracts with private space companies this year, but Bloomberg News reports that there will be $10 billion of private investment by year's end. They're calling it the Galactic Gold Rush. Richard Parnell, Senior VP at NanoRacks, another private space company, warned in his NASA Debates interview that if the international community slows down, private pioneers will not wait. To give you an idea of the time frame we're talking about, Elon Musk's biographer Ashley Vance reported in National Geographic on June 28th that Musk plans to die on Mars. He turns 60 in 2031. Parnell warns us that this is the real question. There are wealthy, practically super powerful individuals pushing forward, and how are we going to regulate them? How are we going to stop them from going to and living on Mars if the nearest government is 140 million miles away? And that's the real problem, is that settlers act as an independent political force from the states they come from. Dr. Farage of the Lamar Institute for the Study of Frontiers and Borders said in his interview that throughout the American experience, settlers defied government agreements to not colonize and take over land. The government instead adopted policies meant to try and encourage settlers to go along with the state. For example, Jefferson argued that colonizable land should be given away to settlers rather than bought and taxed, so that settlers would not simply squat on the land in defiance. That brings me to my second point. If we are going to implement protections, the international community has to get there first. The closest historical analog to an alien planet is Antarctica. According to a lockjaw of The Guardian in 2014, private explorers using private funding went to Antarctica long before the international community. The Australian Antarctic Division reported in 2012 that this resulted in ecological devastation after only a few decades. These private actors were drawn by the exploitable natural resources, and they overfished and overhunted the local wildlife. Seals were on the verge of extinction by 1830. It wasn't until 1958, when the international community began to set up research bases, that created the capacity to constrain private actors. Greenpeace International says the stakeholder system was crucial to blocking the strip mining of Antarctica due to environmental concerns at the end of the 20th century. If we are going to implement these prior restraints, the international community has to win the space race and get there first. They have to be the stakeholders already on Mars making the decisions. As Parnell puts it, you want law-abiding, motivated citizens living on Mars to consent to whatever the international law is. Which brings us to my last point. Excessive regulation could easily derail that goal. Dr. Farron, an astrobiologist at Cornell University, and Lee Billings told the Scientific American that protections for extraterrestrial life can double the cost of missions and add years to the technological development cycle. Dr. Vickar also points out that it would take years just to write and ratify the new treaty obligations. Every year that we delay, that's asking Elon Musk to wait a year further, and we're already asking him to wait into his 60s. He won't wait much longer. Musk or one of the other billionaires on this planet is going to just go without us if we try to tap the brakes now so we can ratify some overriding ethical obligation to microbes. In this historical moment, trying to pass such a law will only be counterproductive. If we really believe in environmental protection, if that's what the point of the law is anyway, then we should just fly to Mars as fast as we can. Once we're there, we can do all the environmental impact statements and policy deliberation we want. But first we have to establish governance and stakeholders besides SpaceX and Planetary Resources LLC.